Mad Makers. Today I'm going to show you how to make a watercolor flower bookmark. Here's another one I did, a little bit different. I didn't put the tassel on it. Yeah, so this is a super fun project. It's really pretty quick and easy. You can make a lot of them really quickly. So let's get started. So I am using a thicker piece of paper. If you have watercolor paper, that works really well. If you don't, this is just a cardstock, that'll work just fine. I went ahead and punched a hole in it so it's ready for the tassel part. It's best to do that before you do the painting, so I just did it now so I wouldn't forget. Alright, so to draw my flower, there aren't really any rules. I'll just kind of show you how I drew mine. So I kind of started, and I kind of had my flowers go off the edge here. You can do that if you want, or you can choose to draw them completely on. You can do more than this, you can do less. Yeah. So how I got started was I drew a circle, and then I made a mark on the top and the bottom, and then I made 2 marks in the middle, so that I had a total of 6 marks, so that I could kind of use those marks to help me. So I started by drawing semicircles, connecting these dots, and it helps me to spin the paper, but if that doesn't help you, then there's no need to do it. So I try to make them as even as possible, but you know, they aren't, and that's not the end of the world. I think what I'm going to do is go back and do a thin layer here, because I kind of, there we go. And then I think I'm going to do a circle in the middle, and I think I'm going to do some half circles in the middle of this. Basically all you're trying to do is build up a lot of little lines that in the end pretty much look like a flower. So now you can keep going with semicircles, or you can change it up and you can do some kind of like pointy triangle shapes. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to connect in between. If you want to be really precise with this, you could measure. You can start by using a pencil. And then when I get to the edge here, kind of just going to go off to the edge like that. That's a little too much work, to be honest, for me. But if you want to be really precise, that's the way to do it. You definitely want to measure when you're doing it. So now I think I'm going to add some more half circles. Oops, kind of petal shapes here. And then I'm going to see what I feel like it needs. It gets a little tricky when you go off the edge, but to make it look like it's really going off the page, that's what you're going to want to do. So I kind of just have a piece of paper underneath here to keep me from getting marker all over the surface that I'm working on. So I like that. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do a double circle, or double half circle around the outside here. Let's see what that ends up looking like. And I'm just using a thin Sharpie marker. Watercolor pencil would work too. Normal Sharpie marker probably would also work. There we go. You just wouldn't get as intricate of a design. So I think I'm going to add just a line in each one of these. I think I'm going to add a third half circle here. I'm really liking how that's looking. I like that. I think I'm gonna let that one be. I feel like it's big enough and it takes up enough space. So now I'm gonna do another one over here, and I'm gonna start the same way. I'm gonna start with a circle. And I think this time I'm still gonna do my little lines. That kind of helps me. Give me a starting point. I think I'm gonna start with some little spikes or triangle shapes. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Now, I think I'm gonna go back to my half circles. I'm really liking that. See where that leads me. Yep, I like that. And now, I feel like this needs something in the middle. Maybe a dot and some lines. Yes. Okay. And go back to my double circle here. Because I don't want these to look too much the same, I think I'm gonna add a connecting half circle here. Like a scallop. Yeah. Now there's not enough happening in here, so I'm gonna go through and add double rainbow shape. That looks good. Now I think I'm gonna add one more layer inside this little one. Feels too empty to me. Okay. Yeah, that's better. Now I think I'm just gonna do some really skinny spikes. Off of these petals. Yeah, I like that. I just kind of wanted something to take up more space. I think we'll do I'm just going to do one more arch. See what that looks like. There's no right or wrong way to draw this. It's pretty much up to you and your imagination. I like that. Okay, I think I'm going to call this good for the drawing part. So my next step is I'll flip it over so I have a fresh page to start with, is to use some watercolors. So don't need, these aren't, what I have for watercolors aren't even fancy. I think they're pretty cheap actually. Don't need anything super fancy. And I'm gonna start just by getting some water into my watercolors so they can kind of start liquefying a little bit. You can use any colors you want. For some reason, I'm just wanting these cool colors with a little bit of the warmth from the pink. So the other thing to know when you're using, if you're using non-watercolor paper, is that this will tend to curl up on you, so you want to work kind of quickly. You can still work on it if it's curled, it's just, you'll see it gets a little bit harder to do. So I kind of like to just get little bits of color. I want like some blue in the top, some blue in the middle, some blue at the bottom. And the more water you add, the lighter color you're gonna get. the less water you add, the more concentrated it will be and the darker color you will get. So it's just up to you as to what you prefer for your piece. And obviously when they come into contact, they're going to start mixing, which is kind of the beauty of watercolor. And you also can't control it too much. So you kind of just have to let it do what it's going to do. I can get enough pink. As you can see, it starts to bend and warp. So like I was saying, it's better if you can work a little bit faster. And then I can go back in on these places that are wet and I can really brighten it up, and I can kind of remix with the other wet pieces. I can leave it washier. If I don't like it this dark, just add a little water. It should just disperse that color and lighten it up a little bit. So it's up to you what you want. You could leave white spaces if you want. You could totally cover it if you want. And then all you have to do is wait for it to dry. So once it's dried, my pieces went back to being mostly flat. If you're having a hard time and they're not going flat, you can put just a couple pieces of paper, sandwich it between some paper, and use an iron on a low setting, and it should flatten back out if you want it super flat. Neither of these, I guess, are super flat, but they're not as warped as they were when they were wet. You can always choose to color the back too. I didn't for these, but if it's a bookmark, it probably makes sense to add color to the back. You can do that while it's wet, or you can let the side dry and then go back and do the back. Again, it'll probably curl again, and then when it dries, it should be flat. I'm going to use some floss just to make a bookmark tassel. So the way I found is that's the best is to kind of just wrap it around my fingers, my hand. Kind of just get everything like that. I want to thread from the front this time. Open up that little spot and pull that tail through there, and then I'll get a nicer looking finish. And then carefully kind of just pull on each one of these individually until you find whichever one or ones need to be tightened up. And then go through and clip any of these and then trim. If these are really crinkly and they're not laying flat, just using a little bit of water on here will straighten these out, and you won't have those weird crinkles in your piece anymore. So yeah, just tighten that down, and there you have it. That is your watercolor bookmark. I hope you had fun, and I hope you got to make a new project that you love. Stay tuned for some more projects to come.